Oh, put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Getting started. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Waiting for everything to connect up and join everything and notifications to go out and so on and so forth. So, how are you doing today? Feel free to say hello in the chat. Let me know how things are going. It looks like Moan is running a little behind today. I haven't gotten the notification that I've gone live yet, so hopefully that will happen here in just a moment. Oh, there we go. Hello, Cosmopolite. Good to see you. I see that Moan is catching up with everything else. Fabulous, 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 fabulous. Excellent. So today we are talking about tit for tat in relationships. And it is a big, big thing that we see a lot of time in relationships, both overt tit for tat and covert tit for tat. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through this live. For those of you who are new to me, new to all this, hello. I am Nookie, Miss Nookie. My pronouns are she, hers. I am a hedonistic, dominant, cuckoldress pimptress who is polyamorous and monoromantic. And I am the founder of Dating Kinky, an educational and connection site for kinky people. We host free educations multiple times a month on various topics, from rope, which was actually just 2 days ago, to dominance, to communication, to non-monogamy, and all sorts of things. And I myself have been living in this lifestyle for nearly 30 years now. And I write books and teach classes. And obviously I host these live events now. So, John had a quick question before we get started. Is it normal to masturbate in a relationship? How about we not talk about normal? Because what is normal for one person will not be normal for another. Is it common for people to masturbate in relationships? Absolutely. That doesn't necessarily make it normal, though, right? Because normal is a pretty individual thing. But thank you for that question. And I'm going to get started talking about tit for tat. So my go lives on Thursdays are all about throwbacks to writings and ideas that I've had before, and coming back and taking a look at those and going through them with you as a live audience, being able to discuss them, being able to talk about the ideas, taking your questions, and so on. So I'm going to go ahead and share some of what I've written about tit for tat, and take your questions and talk with you about it. For those of you on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook, feel free to type in the chat. I will engage with you that way. For those of you on Moan, I will pause every now and again and give you the opportunity to catch up with me. And hi, Kale. Always a pleasure to see you. So yeah, good stuff. Let's close that chat there. There we go. Okay. So in May of 2017, so about 5 years ago, I wrote that tit for tat is absolutely not a safe, sane, and consensual relationship, right? We've all done it. You hurt me, so I lash out and hurt you. It's human nature. It's also bullshit, right? Because if you really love someone, the last thing you want to do is to cause them hurt. The last thing. It should hurt you to cause them to feel pain and guilt, even when you don't mean to, because you love them and you don't want them to hurt. If you want them to hurt because they have hurt you, that's retaliatory. It's petty. It's a business transaction. You give me this, I give that back to you in equal measure. It is not safe, sane, or consensual. It is not kind. It is not considerate. It is not mature. And it's not love. Now, remember, in that, I very specifically said it is human nature. It is what we have been socialized to do, and it is what people do to us. So I am not talking about this in order to make anyone feel bad for doing what they have done in the past, but to give you ideas and thoughts and to talk with you about maybe creating different patterns moving forward, right? So that piece, the Tit-For-Tat piece that I wrote in 2017, makes a perfect introduction for today's Throwback Thursday, which is also about tit-for-tat, in which I expanded upon that idea. And frankly, when I expanded upon that idea, I got a lot of pushback because of the way I presented it. And I'm going to present this to you as well. And you are also welcome to push back on me. But I have found that this particular method of talking to people about the tit-for-tat nature of relationships and retaliatory meanness when we are hurt, it really drives the point home. So, have you ever wanted to kick a puppy? That was one of the questions I asked last night in a lively debate about love and sex and kink. I had been talking about never ever wanting to hurt someone I love and going out of my way to avoid doing it intentionally. They countered with the claim that it was never intentional. It just happens when people are upset and cannot control their emotions. So I said, have you ever wanted to kick a puppy? Or punch your child in the face? And they looked horrified and said, no. So I said, well, have you done those things? No, they said again, this time as if they were looking for a trap. So I pointed out, oh, Donnie Hansen, you have a good point there. And I'm going to pause and show this. So Donnie Hansen says, I disagree that it's always done unintentionally. Narcissists do it on purpose. Very good point. Let's pretend, though, that we're not talking about narcissists. Let's pretend that we're talking about you and I. I'm not a narcissist. Maybe you're a narcissist, but I'm not. So I pointed out that they had never kicked a puppy or punched their child in the face because to them, those actions are anathema, repugnant, and wrong. And they agreed. So I asked, would you kick a puppy? Or would you punch your child in the face when you were really, really angry? They said they wouldn't. So I asked, then why would you hurt someone you love with your words unless deep down in your heart you want to? Unless in the core of your mind you want to. You want them to hurt like you are hurting to prove they love you or feel for you or something, that they are in this mess with you. Because if you really believe that hurting someone you love is 100% wrong, and there is no reason to ever do it, you won't. What do you think about that? Here's the thing, though. Humans are going to human. I mean, we human all over the frickin' place, right? I was very clear in the ensuing conversation from that I am not perfect. Far from it. I do sometimes want to hurt someone I love the way I'm hurting, deeply and instinctually, and sometimes it slips out. However, I mostly don't. And when I do, it horrifies me. There is no reason ever, and if you can prove me wrong, go for it. I can't think of any though, to emotionally attack someone to cause them pain just because I am hurting. Just like there is no reason for me ever to abuse animals, abuse children, abuse people, rape, cheat, and so on. And so I never have. Not on purpose, right? Yes, I have said some hateful things. I'm pretty sure everyone here has said some hateful things. Not with a conscious intent to hurt, but definitely with a subconscious intent to. And because I realized that was wrong for me, I do that much less often as well. And interestingly enough, Cobalt just said, what if you think it won't hurt them, but it does? Well, there is no way that I or you can avoid hurting people accidentally through misunderstandings or thoughtlessness, or in my case, just being me. I accept that, and I do my best. And I am in every day, in small and large ways, also teaching myself that hurting people I love on purpose is wrong. Now, Donnie Hansen says, I feel that it's when a person that actually loves the other will apologize and never make the same mistake again. Communication is key. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. A sincere apology. You may make the same mistake again. Frankly, again, humans are going to human, and as Cosmopolite says on Moan, can't stop humaning, right? We can't. We make mistakes. The question is, are we going to get better? Are we going to put the effort in to not make those same mistakes over and over and over again? Right? Are we going to go out of our way to treat people with love? Are we going to go out of our way, even when we're upset and angry and hurting, to pause and think about the words that are about to come out of our mouth so that we don't say something shitty? Right? So that second post I made in November of 2019, the, would you kick a puppy post. And somebody came in, and I'm not going to call him out on it, but somebody came in and said, words can only hurt with the power you give them. And I was pretty concise in my retort, and I said, bullshit. So they came in with more. Like the wise sage Patrick Swayze taught us in Roadhouse, if you know those words are strung together to elicit a prescribed response, be nice. If we ascribe actual power to hurt with words, then policing those words, you see all the buzzwords coming in here, policing those words becomes legitimate, and with that, the power to police thought, 1984, and that leads nowhere good. Sticks and stones used to be a mantra to remind us that it's only words and the power is yours to let them affect you or not. The initial impact may be unavoidable, but the ramifications become a choice. So this person just went on to say, words can only hurt with the power you give them, and then ended with the initial impact, i.e. pain, may be unavoidable, but the ramifications become a choice. Oh, yeah. For those of you on Moan, I am rolling my eyes so hard. Anyway, I responded and I said, To suggest that words cannot hurt you might be true for you. It is not true for the majority of people. The initial impact may be unavoidable, but the ramifications become a choice. I quoted that. I said, they can choose to change the hurt, like some people can choose with practice to walk across hot coals. However, that initial hurt is enough, especially from someone you love, like your partner, or someone you need, like a parent when you are a child. And it's disingenuous to suggest otherwise. And the fact that words hurt is already made into a crime in many places. That's why we have libel laws. That's why we have slander laws, right? There was more that I said, but I'll leave it there for you to think on and go on to the next. Now, Vidar on Fat Life often makes good points and said, good stuff, but I got to throw a big badonkadonk but here. Sometimes hurting the people we love is inevitable. For the simple reason that our lives are more intertwined. When a kid marries someone their parents dislike or disavows their religion, there's hurt, as one example. It might not be intentional, right? Or there might be a little intentional rebellion wrapped up in that. There's not always a fine line between intentionally and unintentionally hurting those we love. It can be a big overlapping gray area. Emotional proximity means that there's not only greater opportunities to cause hurt, but that it's harder to avoid. And I said, I agree. Sometimes hurting the people we love is inevitable for the simple reason that our lives are more intertwined. And I agree that emotional proximity means that there's greater opportunities to cause hurt and that it's harder to avoid. But the question is, do we put effort into avoiding hurting others? Now, Steve is talking about on Moan repressing emotions. And I would like to be clear that when I talk about communication, I do not suggest repressing emotions. What I do suggest, though, is thinking carefully through what we're going to say and doing our best to say it in the kindest way possible to our partners. Cobalt says, in human anatomy, we have things called Golgi tendon organs in our muscles to predict how much tension will be needed. I wonder if we have something emotional like that. Some people do. It's called empathy. Not all people. Hi. Like if someone always seems to be unaffected by others, but they're actually quite sensitive. Oops, wrong one there. Can we learn to predict how forceful our words will have? We can. I mean, as we get to know people, and if we are putting in what I would consider sincere effort to get to know the people that we interact with, we can begin to see through our past traumas, right? Because that's a huge issue. How we interact with other people is often informed by past traumas. We begin to see through our past traumas and we begin to see them and their humanity and understand who they are, right? And then we can say, hey, the last time I said something like this, they were hurt and took it badly. I should say it differently this time. I'm going to look for different words, right? Shelley says, and I popped this one up earlier, apply the think method in talking. Shelley, you want to add a little bit more about that in the chat? I've heard of the think method, but it's not popping into my head right now. So another comment that we had Oh, Steve says, so be a bigger person. Yes, I'm not even necessarily saying be a bigger person or take the high road, although I think that those are important things to keep in mind. Because to me, suggesting being a bigger person or taking the high road, we're setting ourselves above our partners. And I don't like the mental vision of that. What I would suggest is working with our partners. If they are hurt and they lash out, work with our partners to find the source of that hurt and to alleviate it, to offer them succor. Change to empathize. That's a good one. Yes, empathize. And for those of you who are not familiar with me, or for those of you who are familiar with me but don't know this about me, I don't have the normal empathy that most people are born with. So I actually have had to learn empathy as a skill in order to make the connections that I have and in order to maintain those connections and empathize with people. And that's something that, again, as I said to Cobalt, it takes practice to get to know people and to understand more of how they might respond when you can't feel it in the same way that others can, right? Like many people can sense when their partner is not happy or upset or whatever. That sensation is a sensation I do not receive. So I have to use other cues. So Ramon says, I versus you statements. I feel, not you make me. Oh, 100%. Absolutely. So another comment that I got on that writing was, whenever I feel I've hurt someone, it's usually after the fact. Therefore, most often it's unintentional. When I realized I've hurt someone, I step up to own it and I apologize. Whenever a misunderstanding crops up, it's natural to retaliate or lash out. It's human nature, but yet hitting a child or a puppy is against our instincts, which goes to show some form of higher thinking. And I said, right, because at some point we think it's okay to hurt someone, i.e., another fully functioning adult, even someone we love, when we are feeling defensive, right? Self-defense is part of our rights as humans. And therefore, we want to defend ourselves, or we wouldn't, right? Shelley says, think, true, helpful, inspiring, necessary, kind. Also, halt, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Oh, I can relate to the hungry. Or hangry. I can totally relate to the hangry. So here's something that over the years, like since I wrote that original piece about Tit-For-Tat, and then I wrote the piece in 2017 about would you kick a puppy? The more I practice this, the more I realize it's actually horngry. I also know that one. The more I practice this, though, the more I realize it's actually not that hard. It really, really was. Because I was not raised to love someone even when I hurt. I was not modeled that behavior in anything other than parent-child relating. And I'm guessing some of you can relate to this as well. I didn't ever get loving me through my hurt when I was angry and upset from my partners first. Never, never once. Because humans aren't taught this. We're not modeled that behavior. We're not modeled loving someone through when it feels like they might be attacking us. And in some cases, that's incredibly dangerous, right? Like if somebody holds a gun at you, you don't love them through it, right? It goes against what our lizard brains tell us to do. Now, the more I've done this, though, and the more I've practiced thinking through what I want to say so that I minimize even the possible unintended harm, the easier it comes to me and the more natural it feels. And I can honestly say that I credit this process, this mindset, for rarely arguing or fighting. Because I don't hurt my partner intentionally and very rarely unintentionally. So there's hardly ever a reason for him to feel like he needs to defend himself against me. He knows, I have shown, I have proven that I'm always doing my best. So we have tendency to talk things over, and a fight just never happens. Yay. I mean, rarely happens. We actually had a bit of a row just a couple days ago. Like, I had worked through something. I was super focused in on it. Hello, ADHD. And the time was getting away, and I needed to clean some things up, and I needed to run to the store. And he was trying to put a tire on his bike, and he was having a hard time, and and when it comes right down to it, we just needed to spat at each other for 10 minutes, and then we were done. And who knows what we were even arguing about? But neither one of us tried to hurt the other. So, Steve on Moan is making an interesting point that I'd like to address. You're saying equality isn't equality. Inequality is equality. Because I talked about tit for tat, right? And I'm saying, if you give me harm, then I give you back harm. I am saying that that is not a safe, sane, or consensual relationship. Tit for tat. It's not right. And also, tit for tat is not, it's a business transaction. You give me love, I give you sex. You give me dinner, I give you a blowjob, right? Tit for tat is not a healthy relationship. That said, somebody gives you harm, do you give harm back to them? Let me ask you this. What might be possible in your relationships? Just pause and imagine this. What might be possible in your relationships if you knew beyond the shadow of a doubt, for a fact, that your partner would never, ever want to hurt you, even when they are feeling hurt? That they would never lash out at you, never call you names, never turn your words against you. What might that feel like to you? How different might life and love be to you if you had that certainty in your mind and in your heart? And then, as you're imagining that, I ask you, do you provide it to the people in your life? Cobalt says, I think I usually just want to hide my pain from them. If someone just ripped my heart out, I will seem very dismissive and cold, but it's also just defense. But I definitely want to learn to be loving even through pain. And in response to what that might feel like, Cobalt says, probably trust and my whole being would blossom. So, yeah. What might that feel like? Do we have any questions? Is there anyone on Moan who would like to join me? Share something that you know, an experience you've had, ideas and thoughts. Shelley says, sometimes the off-the-cuff remarks can sting. I'm learning not to do this because I'm hurting my partners and in reality myself. Absolutely. 100%. But again, let's just think about it. How would life and love be different if we knew absolutely without a shadow of a doubt that our partners never, ever wanted to hurt us? What would be possible with them? What would be possible ourselves knowing we had that kind of loving support? How might we be able to open up? Donnie says it would be freeing. Oh, yeah. Hello, Ramon. How are you?
Hi there.
How you doing?
I am doing good. Thank you for creating a break from unpacking for me. So I love your question. How would that feel? Man, that would eliminate the greatest vulnerability that I might ever feel. If I could put ultimate trust, to take it to the extreme, I feel like I could put my life in their hands, because I can give them ultimate trust. Then I can express so many more things because there is no hindsight. We trust each other. I can say things and they know it's coming from my deepest vulnerabilities, quite possibly.
Yeah.
And take it that way.
Yeah. I mean, like I'm sitting here with goosebumps, right? Because it's amazing. And we're humans, so we're going to make mistakes, but
if I never make another mistake, then maybe I haven't taken my desires or possibilities as far as I might want to. It's like the other day, someone posted in a social media account, how would you feel if you got a 1-star review? Well, somebody's not going to like what I do.
Oh yeah.
If I only get 5 stars, then I'm either being way too soft and not trying to extend myself as best as I can, or I just am being too insular in my audience, and that may be what I want, and that's cool.
Sure.
But it's like, I've had editors, I've talked to people, would they please read some of my works, and they would say, "Oh, I will, but please realize I'm going to be brutally honest." And it's like, I absolutely wouldn't want anything less, because I respect that it's your brutally honest, and I need perspectives.
Yeah, and there's a difference. So I would say, because you touched on a little pet peeve of mine that I'm going to go into here for a moment. The concept of brutally honest. So usually people say, well, either I'm going to lie or I'm going to be brutally honest. But no, there's another option. Compassionately honest. It's not any less honest, but you're not being brutal about it.
I love
right?
your phrase there. I thank you for that other term. I was thinking respectfully honest. I love compassionately honest. Yes, because otherwise, as you mentioned at the start, you're just trying to hurt someone.
Yeah. And it's being honest is a way that I think probably everyone has used to hurt other people. And we're able to say, well, I was just being honest. Well, no, you were being shitty, right? Because there's and this is something I can probably pull out and do another one of these lives about. It's not about telling the truth in a way that will hurt people. Now, sometimes telling the truth, you can't help but hurt somebody, right?
Right.
But if you're intending to, or if you don't, actually, let me put it another way. It's kind of like when they talk about like intersectionality and racism. And if you're not anti-racism, you're a racist. It's kind of the same way. If you are not anti-hurting people you love, then you're a bully.
Well, and that's our obsession with making things black and white in the current paradigm, in either or, when in, humanity.
I mean, yes, humanity, obviously. But if we use these things in our heads rather than to judge others, I like to use, like, I will say, if I am willing to lash out at somebody with my words, I know that deep down inside, I felt like that was the okay thing to do in those circumstances. Intellectually, I know better. And so I judge myself on that.
Okay. Yeah. So something else that popped in my mind is, there has to be a level of trust in the person I'm telling, but also two things. One is I am hearing their perceived honesty. I've been around people that will say things that's, my gut reaction is, where the hell did that come from? Or,
oh, sure.
But again, it's their honesty. It is, it's their paradigm. And if the scenario allows, I react to that by saying, tell me more.
Yeah. And so, like, even just yesterday, it was funny. I asked my pet something, and I didn't know it was a little bit of a touchy subject, but it was. And he sort of paused before answering, and then he sort of paused before adding in the bit of the touchy subject thing. But he did. And he paused enough so that, somebody else who was there noticed it. And, I could have said, hey, why did you pause? You didn't trust me to tell me that stuff and have me deal with it but at the same time, I'd rather thank him for being that honest and forthright and for overcoming his past trauma in how people have treated him on touchy subjects like that. Right? So are you reacting or are you responding?
Yeah, that is a very wise posture to have.
Hi, Steve.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. I guess my question is, you're saying tit-for-tat.
Yes.
So basically, I mean, if you're looking at a situation where it's just tit for tat, that is essentially counting one for one. But
correct.
You're saying to not do that, which essentially is still counting. You're saying 2-0. So I mean,
no. Let me stop you there. Okay. We're not counting at all. What we're doing is we are choosing our own actions. And if you personally feel it is okay to hurt somebody because you are feeling hurt, you go ahead and do that.
Okay.
I'm not going to.
Okay, so I asked this question. So you say that you cannot like feel empathy.
Correct.
So in the same way that like you need to go to like level 0 to go to 100, so you need to have some sort of like perspective, right? You're saying you don't feel empathy, but at the same time, you know how it is on the other side of that. So to be able to feel the other side of that, where you do not feel this empathy, wouldn't you say, in a sense, you still feel that empathy, and what's blocking you from feeling that is just you and yourself? So I guess what I'm saying is here, like, if you were to, to say, like, think, before you say something, but isn't that already inevitable? Like, you should already be thinking before you say something. If you're not thinking before you say all these things, you and yourself, you have internal issues that you're expressing on other people. And in that issue, you are empathizing for yourself. So you do have this sense of empathy. It is being repressed by your own emotions inside of your own self. So I don't believe that people can't feel that. And I think that is kind of what is confusing me here, is like, you're just saying to think first, but that is like an inevitable thing that we are all taught as kids. And then like, you're also stating like, okay, like, tit for tat, but also like you need to empathize, right? But that doesn't even go together. So like tit for tat, for instance, if I'm in a relationship and I think of every situation that somebody does, something, and I'm like, okay, I need to do something, that is not a healthy relationship. I understand that, right? But on the flip side, when you start to overanalyze that, when you start to think about that, that doesn't really make any sort of sense. That's essentially doing the same thing. I think.
Let me stop you for a minute, because
you need to drop those repressions within
Steve,
yourself.
Stop for a minute. You're missing something entirely. I am EDD. I am ASPD. I literally do not have the same empathy channels in my brain that other humans have.
But if you feel that pain to exert,
you are missing the point. You are missing the point. You, I'm assuming, are neurotypical in that way. You have a lot more information and sensation available to you than I do. Yes, I have learned empathy as a skill. Okay. I do not have empathy as a sense.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay, that makes sense. I guess just like the whole idea of like the tit for tat is still like the thing that, and I'm sorry that like you have that. That sounds, I've never heard of it, but that sounds, hard. But
you've heard of psychopaths, right?
I mean, I've heard of psychopaths.
Then you've heard of it.
Like, okay, so ED. Okay. I guess just like the tit for tat thing, like, to me, it just feels like, when you overanalyze like too much in a relationship, I found that, like that is what stops. Like, that's what gets in the way. So
that sounds to me. Let me just pause you there.
I think.
Well. Hey. When I say let me pause you, pause, because you'll keep talking and then you'll add too many things in, and I can't address them all. Yeah, so, in a relationship, generally people who talk about overanalyzing are people who are concerned that they're not going to be able to keep up with their thoughts. That's a very anxious thought process. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about sitting and thinking about everything that you have to say for hours and hours and hours. I'm thinking about learning how to pause in the middle of a heated conversation. Like, for example, when I just said pause to you, you had a thought in your head and you really wanted to get it out. Pause and think, what is the point I need to make, and what is the best way to make it right this moment, without being hurtful. And you're not always going to get it right. But if you pause and you think for just a moment about that, then over time, you'll get better and better at it. You'll practice it. And it will, as I just said earlier, it's not difficult once you've practiced it, once you've learned how to just say, stop and say, you know what, I'm not going to respond emotionally. I'm going to pause. I'm going to think for a moment. And then I'm going to say something. And I'm going to do my best not to harm.
Okay. So you're basically saying, like, learn how to fight without hurting each other.
I would say yes.
Which is like a baseline. Like, I guess just like, to me, I just don't, like, what's confusing is like, you know, like, it's a pretty inevitable thing at this point that people understand that, like, you know, like, for instance, in like boxing, like they tell you to, you know, breathe and be as calm as possible, because that is the best way to win the fight. Like, you need to be calm to be able to think through. And as long as you are more calm in the fight, you know, you already have the upper advantage because of, you know, you're thinking clearly, right? So it's essentially the same thing. It's to take a step back before you say something to try not to hurt somebody. But
it's more than that, though, like, Steve.
Where does this differ from, like, just the general, like, you know, relationship stuff that is just, you know, think first, try not to hurt, you know, try to fight without hurting each other? I just feel like it's very, and I'm not saying like it's redundant, but I'm saying like the point doesn't necessarily differ from that. Like,
except that it does, because I'm guessing that nearly everyone in this conversation has had arguments where they have hurt somebody, like they have lashed out. And so the fact that we're still doing this to other humans, and probably a lot of people who are listening right now do this regularly, habitually. The fact that that keeps happening means it still needs to be discussed. And I will also tell you this, that spat I had with my pet, that is the first one that I can remember. We don't fight. We don't need to fight. We don't need to argue, because over the years, we've stopped hurting each other. Now, can you say that? Can you say this is something I was taught as a child, and I have in my relationships somebody who 100% fully and completely trusts me to never, ever hurt them or use their words against them? And do you have that in your partner? Because if not, then this is a valuable conversation to be having. And instead of rejecting it and saying, this sounds like things that we were taught as kids, it should be something that you pause and say, well, why aren't I there yet? If I'm still going through these patterns.
I totally understand what you're saying. I'm not saying that I've gotten into like a, you know, obviously everyone here has been in a fight where they've hurt somebody, you know, so that is, you know, I feel like in itself, you know, also inevitable. I mean, like,
it's not inevitable. That's the point I'm making. And if you think of it as
inevitable going forward, but it is.
It's not inevitable.
I guess I just didn't know the word to use. Like you, everybody's done it. Is that like?
Well, sure, everybody's done it.
Okay.
Everybody's done it, but moving forward, are you willing to say, never, ever again am I going to do this without at least pausing and doing my best to not do it?
I mean, like, I think that's something like we should all do. But,
but is it something you're willing to do? Is it something you are willing to say? Like Cobalt just said, we all pooped our wait, Steve. Steve. Okay, done. Cobalt just said, we all pooped our pants as kids too. Are we going to get better? Hold on for just 1 second, Kissy listener. RK said, my ADHD has caused a lot of struggles with this, although my problem is more that I don't understand how the way I say things affects people. Like, I just don't get it. Oh, absolutely. And also adds, I'm here to learn how to improve and break bad patterns. So yeah, ADHD, anything that is non-neurotypical, absolutely can cause issues in how we communicate with others. And we need to be cognizant of that. We need to talk to our partners about that. And we need to make space in our relationships for that. Kissy, whenever you are back, I know you hit your mute. So whenever you're ready, just pop on up and let's talk about that. But yeah, this is something that unless you are willing to say to yourself, okay, why have I done this in the past? I have lashed out to people in the past because I felt like it was okay, right? So I'm asking you to turn it around and say, how does it feel when I experience it? And then to imagine, how would it feel if I never experienced that from my partner? And with that imagination, commit to yourself to say, I never want my partner to feel hurt just because I was hurting. Because it's a commitment. Kissy, one of the sexiest women I know. Mwah.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Just like one little thing I wanted to say on this is just, I think a lot of us come from a mindset of one person in a relationship versus the other one.
Yes.
Where, that tit-for-tat thing comes from the sort of like one person must win mentality. And I think what can be useful sometimes is the idea that it's not me against you, it's both of us for the relationship.
Right.
So in other words, we're in a conflict. Yes, we're going to have conflict, but the ultimate goal and resolution is that this relationship wins rather than one of us winning.
Absolutely. And that's key. And Ramon says the same thing. The fight analogy assumes that someone has to win. And I'm going to also throw this out there, and this is specifically for you, Steve. If you're fighting, you're already losing. Like, it's and as Kissy says, it's not just you and me for the relationship. It's you and me against the problem. We are collaborating to build the best life for both of us. And that means we both have to attack the problem together. Does that make more sense, Steve?
I mean, that is kind of, I guess I didn't use like a great analogy, but I definitely think you took it very too literal here. I definitely would agree with those points, and I think they're, redundant in what we should do as people. Obviously, we all shouldn't fight. We all want to not fight. So to say like, oh, we should just stop fighting is like saying like, to me, that's like you're saying like global warming, for instance. Like, it's inevitable that global warming is just going to happen. Should we want to stop it? Of course. So like, what is the difference in what you're saying? You're just basically telling me that like, we don't want to fight, stop fighting. Okay, great. We don't want global warming, stop global warming. Okay, great.
Okay, Steve, like stop.
Just not at like
stop. I'm going to answer you. I'm also going to remove you. And so here's the thing, Steve, or anyone else. I'm not telling you not to fight. I'm not telling you that fighting is bad. Of course, we all know that. I'm giving you ways to think your way through so that you don't fight and so that you don't accept fighting from your partners, that you look for ways to collaborate together instead of battling each other. And Steve, honestly, there are a lot of people here who are having a great discussion if I'm not your cup of tea, if you're not understanding what I'm saying, go find somebody who you resonate with, because not everybody's going to be for everybody. Not everybody's going to get the way I think or give a shit, for that matter. And I'm okay with that. But with you, Steve, I was feeling that you had an idea in your head and you just wanted to battle it out. And I have no desire for that. Sapphire, my woman, how are you doing?
Hey, girl. Oh my God. Wow. I love how I stepped in to the middle of some heated drama. But it's like,
Woo!
the midst of it, I'm like, wait a second. I don't understand why. I mean, the man left, which is fine. But even from when I was getting, it goes back to what I tell people all the time. A relationship is not a business transaction. It's a two-way street. And you're going to fight, you're going to disagree at times, but what comes and what matters is the work that you put in and the time that you are willing to listen to your partner. Because
100%.
there is no wrong or right in a relationship, okay? There is no holding one over in a fight. If you're doing that to your partner, then that is not a relationship. That is a one-way street, and that's red flags all around. So
yes,
I'm with you on that. Tit-for-tat is absolutely not safe because, it goes into that play of, when you're in the middle of a fight and then someone brings up, well, what about that time you never do that? You should never do that. You should never do that.
So that touches actually on something that, and this I like to say is the one thing my ex-husband and I got right. Yeah, we got a lot of things wrong, but the one thing we got right is that when one of us would bring something that bothered us or we were upset about to the other one was not allowed to come back at them with something else.
Yes.
Whoever was upset at that moment, they got priority because they reached their tipping point first. Right? I wasn't upset enough to talk about this thing until you brought it at me. And then I'm like, well, I'm going to slap it back at you. That's a no. Mm-hmm. But it's that same type of thing is, we're going to human all over the place. Pet and I probably argue or fight 1 to 3 times a year, maybe at this point, but it's not because we don't disagree. Right? It's because we disagree and then we know that we can talk to each other and work it out. Because we fucking respect each other. We love each other. We want what is absolutely best for each other and for our relationship. Yeah.
I feel that. Yeah. And, the same goes with my partner and I. We might come to disagreements, but what we do, and as I've told a lot of people in other known spaces, checking in with your partner, not when the shit hits the fan, but checking in on a frequent basis on the relationship will strengthen that relationship. Because nothing hurts more when, like you said, you are lingering on an issue.
Yes.
You can be mad in a relationship. That is fine. But address it right then and there. Don't wait until the final hour. Don't wait until you are, already pissed off at other things outside your relationship to be like, you know what? Now I'm mad at you. Now we gotta discuss this.
I had a shitty day at work, so you get to deal with this.
Exactly. No, you don't do that because your partner wasn't there when you had a shitty day at work.
Right.
They might be there when you come home from the shitty day at work. Or, with the disagreement with a friend or someone outside in your, outside of the relationship.
Right.
But, the point of a relationship is to be each other's rocks. And if you cannot be a solid foundation, then what the fuck do you have at the end of the day?
100%.
You got nothing. So I just wanted to pop up and, say, woo!
Woo!
Knowledge, feeding my soul. I know it's fine, but, to all the Steves out there, I need you guys to really reassess and reevaluate your priorities in relationships. Because it sounds like Steve's got a lot of hurt and some trauma that he has yet to evaluate.
Okay, so Ramon, you had some thoughts. I can read them from the chat, or if you'd like to come on and speak them, I would love to hear them from you. Up to you. Up to you. RK says that one of their partners is win-lose, and it makes conflicts worse. Ramon, yes.
Yes. What I entered is, I have had discussions. I've had to work with people from, I perceived, kind of the India-ish part of the world, how they have learned to talk and interact and discuss is along the lines of how he was trying to express himself.
Sure. Yeah.
And he even hinted at one point, well, I may be choosing the wrong words here, but he still couldn't get out of his sandbox in how he was trying to talk. And
I've worked with a lot of developers and humans from the Southeast Asia area, and it's very much like, I might be saying this wrong, but my idea is not wrong. And I will point this out, and I'm not going to necessarily say this was him, but I will also point out that often when interacting with somebody who presents as femme, they are less likely to give an inch.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and I didn't necessarily take that into account when interacting with him. He just wouldn't respect the boundaries that I was setting upon the conversation. So, oh well.
That nailed it, what you just said.
Yeah.
It's like, you want to sit at this table, here's what the chairs look like. And if you can't sit in that chair, then, this isn't the table. 100%.
And that's the thing. Like, for me, I'm not here to convince anybody. There's some loud noise coming on from there, Ramon.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. I'm here to provide ways of thinking about things. Now, whether or not you're going to take that and run with it or not, I mean, that's up to you. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm simply saying that I'm offering an experience that for me has over the years made my life so much better. I know for a fact that my partner is never going to intentionally hurt me in a fight. I know he is never going to lash out at me emotionally. I mean, yeah, we had a spat, like I said, just a couple days ago, but he didn't lash out at me with things that would hurt me. He just got pissy, right? He blew up, and it's okay. People do this.
Indeed.
And that's important.
I just want to let you know I'm going to have to go. I always appreciate
Thank you.
Your thoughts, because I know where they're coming from.
Yay. Okay, so we've got a couple of things in the chat that I want to bring up. Let's see. You can discuss problems without fighting. Absolutely. And that's the whole point. The more you practice this sort of awareness, and Ramon had also said in the chat, I'm going to say this, assuming everyone has experienced the natural human reaction of fight or flight, self-awareness to mitigate that is extraordinarily powerful. Attacking the issue together, if that's what both want, strengthens the relationship. So again, Steve was absolutely correct in that we hear this a lot, right? But is it working? Is it working in your life? Have you got this down? Because if not, thinking about it in different ways and thinking about, is it ever actually right to lash out at somebody emotionally just because we're hurting? That can be a big sort of aha moment, right? Now, Cobalt said, this was back in the Steve thing. Your patience is saintly, Miss Nookie. Well, thank you. Thank you. And Donnie said, right, Nookie is amazing. Thank you. I appreciate that. Cobalt, boundaries are really sexy as fuck, which is kind of a joke because I'm working on a book right now called Boundaries Are Sexy as Fuck. And I would like to add to that, boundaries are sexy because it allows us to not get pissed off at people like that, to not let it ruin our whole day, and to, you know, still have the love and the happiness and the joy and the ability to not get pissy at our partners, right? So that matters. Do we have any additional questions on the topic or anything that you might want to bring up? Somebody says, happy healer for president 2024. How can people start in a life like this? I am a gay man who adores my first wife, a woman, and sometimes feels like she would like to feel a more manly straight man that is more manly than me. I'm not quite sure what the question is there or how it applies to this, but you are welcome to reach out to me on FetLife at Nookie Notes. You're welcome to, where are you at? Okay, so your YouTube, you're welcome to, you know, reach out to me through YouTube and, you know, ask that question, but I'm not sure exactly how it applies to this. Dennis says, my queen is in charge. She gives the right to express my feelings. I'm grateful, but her decision is the only one that counts. As her cuck, it is my pleasure to serve her in any manner she wishes. Sure. I mean, I have a power exchange relationship as well. For me, that means, though, that I want my partner to feel as comfortable and as secure in the relationship as I do. And so I'm not going to use my power to overrule him often. I'm going to talk with him and we're going to attack the things that are not working for us together. KS says, some relationships are competition, some are partnership. And you have just pretty much summed everything up that I just said in an hour and 17 minutes. Thank you. No, really. I mean, like, honestly, but we need to talk these things through and we need to think about what standards are we willing to accept for ourselves? What standards are we willing to accept from our partners in our relationships? And how are we going to behave? How much effort are we willing to put in to creating that better life? And by imagining what that life might feel like, that might give us the inspiration to do so. So thank you all for joining me today, for spending your time with me. I appreciate it. For those of you who came in late and who don't know me, hello, I'm Nookie. My pronouns are she, hers. I am the founder of Dating Kinky, a kinky education and dating site. And don't hesitate to reach out to me on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. I'm at Dating Kinky. On Moan, I am Miss Nookie. On Nookie Notes, I'm Nookie Notes on FetLife. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. I am always happy to discuss these things. So thank you so much. Oh wait, Cosmopolite said, I might have missed their earlier question. Let me do that because I don't want to miss something. Okay. I might be asking outside of the scope here, but what about outside of relationships? My experience in the kink community thus far has been witnessing people get harmed and then responding by harming them. Oh. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Let me real quick touch on this because I think this is great. So in the kink community, the challenge that we have as a community, which is only in a very loose sense of the word, because we're a bunch of people who all love kink, but that's the only thing we necessarily have in common, right? So in the kink community, people get hurt. And then when they claim that hurt, people often do lash out and feel harmed by a claim, right? Like, you're trying to ruin my reputation for something that I thought was a misunderstanding and whatever. Applying this in your own dealings outside of a relationship also matters. And it is much harder in a lot of ways. I actually used to spend a lot of time picking at people who like came onto my writings to troll me or whatever. And I don't even do that anymore. You know, I will take it as far as I need to take it for as much conversation as I need to have, and then I will simply stop and say, thank you so much. Done. I'm gonna erase, I'm gonna delete anything else that you add here, or I'm going to block them. I'm going to be as compassionate as possible with people. Some people are just not compassionate. And the challenge with doing this outside of a relationship is you don't get to pick the people, right? In a relationship, you can at least say, I love this person, or I really like this person, or they give me amazing orgasms, right? But some internet stranger troll is much harder to have this compassion for. And yet, I have realized that part of my own ethical code is to also be as compassionate as possible for them as well. So, and Ryan on Moan just reminded me that we have 2 webinars tonight. We have Keeping Secrets, which is all about maintaining your privacy as a kinkster online. And we have Untangled, which is mentally healthy kink in vanilla world. You can find those at datingkinky.com/live if you have any interest. But thank you again. Cosmopolite, you are absolutely right. We could all work together to improve our compassion towards others. The main thing is, though, the challenge with this is we have to start with ourselves. And I started with myself, you know, writing about that back in 2017, 5 years ago. So now I'm really able to talk about this. And yes, if we could all focus on harm reduction in our communities, that would be lovely. But we need to focus on harm reduction in ourselves first, because we have to be able to model that behavior. And so I'm here hoping to model some behaviors for you. If you are inspired by it, then you can practice them and model those behaviors for others, right? Fingers crossed. Thank you again. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Kissy listener, mwah, always a pleasure. Thank you to all of you. Have an amazing day. I appreciate all of you. Bye-bye.